She ordered the lavender latte with oat milk. She knows I'm allergic to lavender, and she smiled while saying it. Not at me. At him. The guy 2 seats down in the slim black turtleneck with the laugh that sounded like polished silver, smooth, expensive, cold. Nobody looked at me when I sat down. Not even her. I wasn't late. I was early. I had even picked out the table. I wiped it down with one of those sad brown napkins they keep in metal dispensers near the bar. She said we'd all sit there together. But when they arrived, they chose the one by the window, and I followed like a houseplant someone keeps forgetting to water. She introduced everyone except me. Hey, that's Jasper, she said, pointing to the one with the vintage Nikon camera around his neck. And that's Elle, our new UX designer. She's hilarious. And this, she turned to Turtleneck, this is Donovan. He's everything. And me? I just nodded like a waiter who showed up on his day off. We were at a place she called their spot. I'd never been. It had industrial pipes running across the ceiling and tiny mismatched chairs that looked like they came from a Victorian orphanage. The kind of place that plays vinyl jazz and pretends it's spontaneous. Donovan talked the whole time. About Tokyo. About wine tasting in Portugal. About how stand-up desks are a scam invented by chiropractors. He laughed at his own jokes, and Leora touched his arm every single time like it was reflex. I counted 11. I made a comment once. Something about the playlist. It was Nina Simone, I think. No response. Then she did something strange. She reached over my cup, and took a sugar packet without a word. Didn't ask. Didn't look. Just used my coffee like a side table. I suddenly became aware of my posture. My breathing. My hands. I didn't know what to do with them. I rested one under the table and held the other against my thigh like I was expecting a blood test. And I realized something. I was invisible. Not metaphorically. Not emotionally. Literally invisible. In that place, in that moment, I did not exist to her. The man she laughed with, leaned into, let taste her drink. That was who she wanted to be seen beside. I was just background. So I stood up. She didn't notice. I stood there for a full 6 seconds. Then I left. And about 10 minutes later, my phone buzzed once. Hey, where'd you go? LOL. That's all she wrote. And just like that, I knew. She didn't lose me when I walked out. She lost me when she looked straight through me and smiled at someone else. I didn't go home right away. That little cafe was only 6 blocks from the river, so I walked there, slowly, dragging my feet across the sidewalk like gravity was suddenly working twice as hard on me. I didn't check my phone. I didn't even look back at the cafe. I just kept moving through the chill October air, feeling like a mistake that someone made and forgot to delete. When I got to the river walk, I sat on one of those metal benches with chipped black paint, the kind that digs into your back no matter how you sit. I stared out across the water, watching a pair of seagulls fight over a French fry near the rocks, and all I could think was how they had more passion in that tug-of-war than I'd seen in my marriage for the past year. Still no messages. No call. Just that one little LOL text from earlier, like she was humoring a needy intern who wandered off in the middle of lunch. I sat there until the sun dipped just below the skyline, and the wind started to bite through my jacket. Then, finally, I went home. Our apartment was quiet, and I hated that I noticed. I used to love the quiet, back when silence between us felt comfortable, warm. Now it felt sharp, loaded. I walked past the bookshelf, past the photos on the wall, none of which had been updated in 2 years, and went straight to the bathroom. I looked at myself in the mirror. I mean, really looked. Puffy eyes, dried skin on my lip, one collar bent inward. I looked like a man who'd been benched from his own life. Around 9:30 p.m., she came home. No explanation. No apology. She just walked in, dropped her tote bag near the hallway closet, kicked off her boots, and went straight for the kitchen like it was any other night. I heard her pour wine, not the one we used to share, and she grabbed her phone off the counter without even glancing at me. I watched her from the hallway. I didn't say a word. Neither did she. And then, suddenly, she let out this soft laugh. Not to me. To someone on her screen. She was texting. Smiling wider than I'd seen in months. She covered her mouth with the back of her hand like she was embarrassed, like she was 15 again, flirting after curfew. Then she typed something back, quick and eager, and set the phone down face down, like it was private. Like it had to be. That's when I felt it. Not anger, not even betrayal. Just this sinking realization that she was already somewhere else. Emotionally, mentally, maybe even physically. I didn't know how far it went, but I knew this. I wasn't part of it. And still, I didn't ask. I couldn't. Because asking would mean I was admitting the truth I wasn't ready to hear. So I went to bed early and stared at the ceiling in the dark for over an hour, listening to her faint giggles from the other room. That night, she didn't come to bed. And when I woke up, her side was still untouched. Cold. The first thing I noticed that morning wasn't that she hadn't come to bed. It was that her toothbrush never moved. Still dry. Still untouched. I had brushed my teeth twice since she got home. Once before bed, and again at 5:40 a.m. when I woke up, unable to pretend I could sleep through the silence. And hers still sat at the exact same angle, leaning against the soap dispenser like it was propped for decoration. That may seem like a stupid thing to fixate on, but when your marriage is dissolving in front of your eyes, you start scanning for any proof that things are real, tangible, still shared. And that toothbrush, for a long time, was proof that she existed beside me, that we were still brushing our teeth in the same universe. Not anymore. I got dressed without turning on the lights. I moved through the apartment like a guest. Made toast I didn't want. Burned it. Ate it anyway. Around 7:15, I heard the soft click of her keyboard in the other room. Not a word spoken. No good morning. Not even a grunt. Just the tapping of her fingers, like a Morse code of indifference. I left for work early. I needed to breathe somewhere else. I work at a local insurance firm, mostly back-end policy processing. It's not glamorous, but it's quiet and no one expects me to sparkle. The whole day blurred. I sat through meetings I'd barely heard, nodded at people I didn't register, and stared at a spreadsheet so long I forgot what numbers even meant. But the worst part wasn't being ignored at work. It was realizing I missed being ignored at home more. When I got back that evening, she was already dressed to go out. Burgundy coat, curled hair, fresh lipstick. She looked radiant. She didn't even flinch when she saw me standing there in the hallway, still holding my bag. "Oh, didn't know you were coming home this early," she said casually, grabbing her keys from the tray by the door. "I live here," I replied. She blinked, smiled awkwardly. "Right. Of course." I wanted to ask where she was going. I really did. The question hovered on the edge of my tongue like a breath I never took. But something about her posture, relaxed, detached, made it impossible. So I said nothing. And she didn't offer. She walked right past me. Not a kiss. Not a hand on the shoulder. Just a breeze of expensive perfume that didn't belong to anything I ever bought her. She left at 6:42 p.m. I remember because I looked at the clock twice. And then I did something I'm not proud of. I checked her drawer. Not her phone. I've never gone that far. But I opened her desk drawer, the one she never lets me organize, and found an envelope with a card inside. No name on the outside. Just a clean white envelope. Inside was a handwritten card that simply said, "You deserve to be seen. Always." It wasn't for me. And it definitely wasn't for me. I put it back exactly where I found it, closed the drawer softly, and sat in the dark for 3 hours. When she returned home, past midnight, she smelled like wine and someone else's cologne. And for the first time in my life, I didn't ask a single question, because I knew I wasn't ready for any of the answers. The next morning, I did something out of character. I stayed home from work. I called in sick and sat in the kitchen for an hour doing nothing. Not reading, not thinking, not scrolling. Just sitting. The chair creaked every time I shifted, but otherwise, the apartment was silent. Leora had already left. No note. No text. No movement of her toothbrush, again. I opened the fridge 3 times without taking anything out. Just opened, stared, closed. I felt like I was trying to prove I was alive by checking if the milk still existed. That's how far gone I was. And the worst part? I wasn't even angry. Just tired. Like my bones had absorbed all the silence and turned it into weight. Around 11:30 a.m., I saw a notification blink across my phone. It was from our shared calendar, something we barely used anymore. It said, "Lunch with D, 12:30 p.m., the Finch." I froze. D. Donovan. She never logged personal things in the calendar. Ever. Not even anniversaries. So why now? Why put this one there? So casually. Unless she wanted me to see it. I don't know what possessed me, but I went. I didn't walk inside. I just stood across the street near the flower vendor with the faded umbrella, pretending to look at tulips. I watched her through the window. She was sitting across from Donovan in a small booth, smiling. Not like a wife sharing lunch with a colleague, but like someone who chose to be there. Someone who felt safe. Light. relaxed in a way I hadn't seen in months. She reached across the table and wiped something off his cheek with her thumb. He didn't flinch. Neither did she. I left before they finished their food. I didn't need more proof. Back home, I sat on the couch and stared at a wine glass she'd left near the TV the night before. Lipstick still on the rim. A single fingerprint near the stem. I don't know what came over me. Maybe it was seeing her with him, or maybe it was the weeks of pretending not to notice my own erasure. But I picked it up and threw it against the wall. The glass didn't shatter the way they do in movies. It cracked, just cracked, and rolled to the floor like it had changed its mind halfway through breaking. I stared at it. One long crack running through the bowl, like a quiet confession. That was us. Still whole, technically, but already broken. Later that night, she came home humming. Humming. She dropped her purse on the couch and went straight for the fridge. I sat at the kitchen table, waiting. She didn't even see me until she turned around with a yogurt in her hand and jumped slightly. "Oh, you scared me," she said. I nodded. Then I asked, very quietly, "How was lunch with Dee?" She didn't freeze. She didn't fumble. She didn't lie. She just smiled. It was nice. That was it. No apology. No denial. No shame. Just 3 words that cut deeper than anything I was prepared for. She walked away, barefoot on the wood floor, eating that yogurt like nothing had happened. And the sound of her spoon tapping the container was the only answer I got. 2 days passed. 2 long, infuriatingly normal days. She continued humming around the apartment like we were in a musical, only she had the sheet music too. Nothing had changed in her routine. She still used my almond milk, still left her hair clip on the bathroom counter like it was a decoration, still put on music while she cooked like she was in some indie film montage. But now, I knew how fake it all was. And that made it worse. If she had yelled at me, thrown things, even cheated openly, I think I could have at least felt something definitive. But no, she just moved around me like a breeze. Not hostile, not apologetic, just detached. On the 3rd night, she fell asleep on the couch, or at least pretended to, laptop open on her stomach. She was still in her work clothes, though her shoes had been kicked off and her hair was tied up messily. I stood in the hallway for a long time just watching her breathe, wondering if I'd ever been part of her real life at all, or just something she accepted as a placeholder until she figured herself out. And then I did something I swore I wouldn't do. I opened the laptop. Now, let me be clear, I didn't hack it. I didn't guess her password or install spyware or do anything illegal. The screen was already on. Her inbox was open. I didn't even scroll. It was just there. She had fallen asleep before she could close it, or maybe she just didn't care anymore. There were several tabs open. Slack, her work calendar, a shopping cart with a $290 code in it. Nothing alarming. And then one tab, a private Instagram account. I didn't recognize the username. It was a handle that sounded like poetry at glass afterlight. No name, just photos. Dozens of them. They weren't of her. Not exactly, but they were of things that felt like her. Her coffee cup in the sunlight, her boots on wet pavement, a blurry photo of a shoulder, hers, with a caption that said, "Some days I forget I'm still someone's wife." The photos were all artistic, warm-toned, carefully edited. They weren't public. Maybe 20 followers. All hidden. But I recognized one like, Donovan. Every single post. Liked. And commented, once, "This one feels like you." She replied, "Maybe that's why it scares me." I didn't take a screenshot. I didn't message anyone. I just closed the laptop quietly, backed away, and stood in the hallway, stunned, while she kept sleeping like her dreams were finally peaceful now that the secret had somewhere to live. I wanted to wake her up. Ask her, when did this start? Who are you in that account? And who am I now? Just the man outside the frame. But I didn't. Because deep down, I already knew the answer. She had built a world where I didn't exist, not as a husband, not as a partner, not even as a memory she needed to explain. And the most painful part wasn't that she created it. It was that she looked happier in it. I stopped talking to her. Not out of anger. Not as punishment. It just happened, like a house settling after years of holding up too much weight. Every word I might have said to her got rerouted somewhere else. To my steering wheel on the drive home, to the shampoo bottle in the shower, to the stranger walking his dog at 6 a.m. who probably thought I was mildly unstable. I became a man who spoke to things that didn't speak back, because at least they didn't pretend to listen. Leora didn't notice the silence. Or if she did, she pretended not to. She started leaving earlier in the mornings, getting home later. She'd breeze past me with a kiss on the cheek that landed more on air than skin. I once said good night just to see what would happen. She responded with MHM, already halfway down the hallway, face lit by her phone's screen. Probably logging into at glass after light. Probably crafting another caption for someone else to decode. I started checking the account again. Not logging in. I wasn't going to sink that far. But I knew the handle now, and even without following it, I could see the public previews. She posted nearly every day. Little cryptic photos of her desk, reflections in windows, her shadow against a brick wall. Every image was cropped like she was erasing parts of herself or parts of me. The captions got more personal, more deliberate. One said, "Sometimes disappearing is safer than being forgotten." Another, "I'm not running. I'm finally walking where I want." Each time Donovan liked it. Sometimes within minutes. I imagined him getting alerts. I imagined him smiling when he saw them. I imagined them having inside jokes about the ones I didn't understand. Then, one night, I made a decision that felt like turning a wheel in a locked room. I didn't tell her. I didn't need to. I just booked the weekend, a cabin, upstate, by a lake we used to visit before life got cold and gray. No agenda. No surprise getaway nonsense. I simply printed the reservation and left it on the counter where she'd see it. She found it the next morning. I watched from the hallway as she read it. "What's this?" she asked, not even looking up. "A weekend," I said. "Just you and me. Somewhere quiet." She blinked twice, like the idea didn't compute. "I have meetings next week. A campaign going live Monday." "It's Friday." "I know, Irwin, but I can't just drop everything because you're suddenly feeling sentimental." I wanted to scream. Instead, I just stared at her, really stared, and said, calmly, "It's not sentiment. It's CPR." That made her pause. For the first time in days, maybe weeks, she looked at me like I was a real person again. But only for a second. Then she turned away and said, "Maybe next month." Next month. Like our marriage was an item on her calendar she might revisit between deadlines. That night, I packed the suitcase anyway. I went alone. I didn't text her. Didn't call. I just got in the car and drove into the cold, gray stretch of trees where the cell signal faded, and the air finally felt heavy in a way that didn't come from her silence. In the cabin, I made a fire. I sat in front of it with a blanket she had once picked out from a clearance bin in Vermont, back when we used to laugh in grocery stores just because we could. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel invisible. I just felt gone. And oddly, that was better. She didn't text Friday night. She didn't text Saturday morning. She didn't call when it rained, or when the power flickered twice and I sat on the cabin floor by candlelight, thinking about whether she noticed the suitcase missing. She didn't even send a shallow, sarcastic, "Did you take my charger?" which she used to do when she didn't want to admit she cared that I was gone. She waited until Sunday at 4:17 p.m. The call came through while I was sitting on the deck, watching a pair of crows circle something dead in the trees. I let it ring. Not because I wanted to punish her. I'm not that brave, but because I wanted to see if she'd try again. She didn't. One call. That was it. And the voicemail? 24 seconds of silence, followed by a sigh, and, well, okay then. That's what my absence meant to her. A shrug with a voicemail timestamp. I stayed until Monday morning. Didn't shower. Barely slept. I wrote something in a notebook. Not a letter, not a journal. Just scribbled words that didn't belong anywhere. At one point, I drew a map of our apartment, labeling each room with whatever emotion it held now. The kitchen, avoidance. The bedroom, frost. The living room, her laughter echoing in a space I no longer fit inside. When I finally came back home, everything looked untouched. Too untouched. Like she'd staged it for an open house. Her coat still on the hook. Her perfume still sitting on the dresser. A grocery bag on the counter with things she doesn't even eat. Almond crackers, ginger tea, peanut butter with honey swirls. My food. My habits. Still bought. Still there. Still acted out, even in my absence. It was like she was performing wife for an audience she didn't believe in anymore. She was sitting at the table with her laptop when I walked in, pretending to work. She looked up slowly, like I had entered a room I wasn't invited into. "You just left?" she said flatly. "I told you where I was going," I replied. "I didn't think you'd actually go without me. You didn't want to come." She closed the laptop too hard. The sound echoed between us like a slammed door. You're not the only one who's tired, Irwin. That stopped me. Because no matter how much I wanted to be angry, to accuse, to explode, to pull her Instagram account up and scream about poetic captions and secret admiration, I knew something else was buried beneath her exhaustion. Something deeper than resentment. Something older than Donovan. You're not tired of me, I said carefully. You're tired of pretending you still feel something. She didn't answer. Not with words. Instead, she stood up and walked over to the sink. She stared out the window like she was waiting for some cosmic sign. A car crash, a lightning strike, anything but the weight of my sentence filling the air behind her. I don't know what I feel anymore, she finally whispered. And that was somehow worse than if she had said, I don't love you. Because at least then, I could have worked with something. Instead, she left me with a fog, uncertainty, and 1,000 miles of emotional distance wrapped around 6 feet of hardwood flooring. That night, I didn't sleep in our bed. Not because I was angry, but because the space beside her had already been empty for months. I didn't leave in the middle of the night. That would have given her something to twist, something to tell her friends about, he stormed out. He couldn't handle the truth. No, I waited until morning. Until the birds started tapping on the windowsill, and the first bit of soft gray light crept across the bedroom wall like a slow reveal. She was asleep when I stood at the foot of the bed, peaceful, lips slightly parted, still using my pillow even after weeks of not touching me. I wanted to hate her, but the truth was, I didn't. I pitied her for wasting so much of herself pretending, for choosing aesthetics over intimacy, for posting filtered captions to strangers while the man who once memorized the shape of her laughter slowly faded out of her reality. I didn't write a long note. Just 5 words on a yellow sticky left on her nightstand. You forgot I had legs. That was it. I packed only what I needed. A bag of clothes, my camera, my hiking boots, the mug she never liked but I always used. I left the ring in the drawer. Not to be cruel. I just didn't want to carry it anymore. I had done enough carrying. Years of it. When I closed the front door behind me, I didn't feel sad. I felt taller. Like I had been slouching in my own life for so long. I forgot what it felt like to stand up straight. The first week was hard. I stayed at a small guest house near the edge of the city. The kind with too much floral wallpaper and a landline phone that never rang. I took long walks. Deleted apps. Read half a book I didn't finish but still liked. I missed things, not her, exactly, but the shape of what we used to be. The memory of loving someone before you realized they stopped rooting for you. She texted 4 days after I left. Are you okay? I didn't answer. Then another. I didn't expect you to actually leave. And finally, can we talk? Please? This time I replied. Just one message. I think we already said everything. We just stopped listening. She didn't answer after that. I heard from mutual friends that she took time off work. That Donovan disappeared from her social media. That the Glass After Light account went dark. I didn't go looking. I didn't need to. Some endings don't require applause, just peace. Months passed. I moved into a small place with a crooked balcony and a stubborn heater. It's not much, but the light pours in through the windows every morning like it's trying to say, you made it. I cook for myself now. Not just reheated leftovers, but actual food, garlic, lemon, butter sizzling in a pan, music playing low. And when I sit at the table, I sit in the middle, not tucked into a corner, not waiting for someone else to fill the silence. Because I've learned something. You don't need someone to see you to exist. Sometimes, walking away isn't the end of a love story. It's the beginning of finally loving yourself.